But October is the beginning of a time of the year that's just wonderful. I mean, we've got Halloween, which for most of us means free candy. Then Thanksgiving, and then Christmas. I mean, it's just a great time of the year. When I was thinking about this passage of scripture that I want to share with you this morning, it reminded me of a story a good number of Octobers ago when I was kind of a young guy, and me and my friends were riding around one evening. It was kind of late at night, and we were trying to figure out what to do, where to go, and we were talking about Halloween as it was coming up, and we started telling all these like ghost stories and trying to scare each other. And one of the guys in the car, that were all packed in this car, one of the guys said, "Hey, I know where there's a haunted hotel." Now, I grew up in Southern California, and for those of you that are from Southern Cal, you may know where Westminster is. And this hotel, this broken down old hotel, was at near the intersection of Beach Boulevard and Westminster Avenue in the city of Westminster. It was called the Three Greenhorns Inn. It's no longer there. But we made our turn. We were cruising down Huntington Beach. We made our way up Beach Boulevard, and we headed to this haunted hotel. So it was late at night, and so we were getting a little anxious for the moment. Didn't know what we were going to get into. At least I didn't. And so as we turned down Westminster and found this old broken down property, and it was the front of it was about half as wide as the property here at GCU out on Camelback. And the fence on the street was probably 15 feet high, and it was overgrown with ivy and a big hedge. And there were two entrances. There was an entrance on one side and an exit on the other side of this property. So we turned into what we thought was the entrance, and turned out this property was deep, and the old broken down hotel was in the middle of it. And it was about from where we are today to where the student union is. So you kind of get that in your mind. Between here and there was the old parking lot and what looked like not a forest, but an orchard of sorts. All these trees, and they were overgrown and broken, and it was dark at night, and there were no lights. And we turned into this driveway, into this property, off the lit street to what was absolutely dark, and it's like we turned into another world. We got about 15 or 20 feet in the parking lot, and we stopped the car. We're all looking at each other. We're starting to get a little freaked out. And as we looked at what was in the center of this property was this old hotel. And so it was across the way, and you could hardly see it, but all of a sudden there were these flashing lights. Oh, I'm like, are you kidding me? This thing is haunted. And so we looked at each other, and our hearts start to race. We go, like smart students do, "Hey, let's go further." Instead of turn around and get out of there. That's why in movies, they always drop the gun and the sword or the stick, and they open the door without any kind of weapon, and you get all freaked out when you watch me. At least I do. Same kind of deal. We said, let's go further. So all of a sudden, we see those flashing lights, and I thought, man, what are we getting ourselves into? So we rolled down the windows. It was like this. It wasn't a button in those days. So we rolled down the windows, and so we start cruising through the parking lot, getting closer and closer to this building. So we stopped about halfway there. We're trying to figure out what was going on, and all of a sudden we realized what we had stumbled upon. So we pulled up closer, and what happened to be taking place in that area was something I had never seen before. There were about 7 or 8 cars that were parked around the old empty swimming pool in front of the lobby of the hotel. And they had their lights on. And there were skateboarders down in this dry swimming pool going up and down as their heads were popping up in front of the headlights. What we saw from afar that scared us, all of a sudden, was something magical. Now, I wasn't a skateboarder. I loved to swim in the ocean. I knew how to body surf, but wasn't much on a skateboard. But we pulled up in our car, and we climbed out of the car, and we stood there next to that dry swimming pool, watching these guys shred this old pool like we had never seen before. And that whole style of skateboarding was just beginning to take off. Some of you know the story of Dogtown and the Z-Boys. Some of you are skateboarders, at least you have your longboards, you get across campus, but when this stuff was all new, and it was beginning to emerge, skateboarders were trying all kinds of crazy new things. So there we stood next to this swimming pool, which for us just minutes ago was a scary scene from far away turned into a magical scene. There were these long-haired 70s kids with their Vans tennis shoes. You know, blue was the Vans skateboarder color of the day. Hang-ten shirts with the two little feet. Their sleeveless shirts, their long hair going up and down in that swimming pool as we stood there and watched. Wow. I've never seen guys on skateboards do anything like that before. Down in the deep end, up on the edge, on the coping, down to the shallow end and back. And I don't remember what I thought that day other than, this is pretty cool. But what started in that moment became a worldwide culture of skateboarding. You know, it's amazing what light can provide for us. What light can shine on and expose and reveal and give opportunity for is a powerful thing. In Matthew chapter 5 is one of the greatest sermons Jesus ever gave. In the middle of this talk, or really at the beginning of this talk, he begins to describe what he sees in his people. I want you to see this in chapter 5 and verse 14. It's on the screen behind me, and it says this. You, Jesus says, are the light of the world. Like a city on a hilltop that cannot be hidden. I want to stop there for a minute, because some of you here are discovering yourselves. You came to college, you're away from home. Your parents' faith is not necessarily your faith, and you're trying to figure out what you believe. Trying to figure out what your life should look like as it relates to this whole spiritual journey that you're on. Some of you have fallen right in line with where your parents have led you, or the church that you grew up in has led you and taught you. But for some of you, you're exploring it for the first time. Some of you here perhaps are indifferent about walking with Jesus. But your heart is open, so nonetheless you're here. Some of you are here because you feel like you have to, and maybe some of you are here because you have to be here.